guys, this is John and Jeff from First Response Pest Control, and we're here talking about pests that you need to consider, especially if you've got a home or a business in Lancaster, because weather's changing, things are heating up, and we're starting to see signs already. Jeff, how are you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. How have you been?
So we're going to talk about some. You've been out in Lancaster today as well. We're early. I mean, we're not really even into the season, Jeff. But what are you seeing? What are you seeing in the Lancaster area now?
It's amazing. I mean, the weather's been all over the place lately. Like you mentioned, I mean, we're getting all the seasons in a day. Sometimes, with just different weather events, all wrapped up into the week.
It's a bit like Scotland, where you get 4 seasons in one day, or 4 seasons
like 4
in a few
seasons
hours.
in one day. Yeah, the old saying, "You don't like the weather? Just wait about 15 minutes; it'll change." And it seems like it's been that way lately. And the bugs, it's got them confused too. So yeah, we've been seeing a little bit of early stirrings, like you mentioned. I mean, we're not really into the season. Historically, looking back, when do we normally see this type of bug, that type of bug? And of course, like we always say, of course, the ants, they're a given. They're always around. So we're definitely seeing their activity, on the warmer, sunnier days. They're out there, they're showing themselves, and they're on the move. But we've gotten a few people noticing the outdoor roaches. A lot of times they call them water bugs, the Oriental roach, the American
season
roach.
as well.
Yeah, a little early for them, but they've been noticing a few of them belly up in their garages, and that's a testament that what we're doing is
what you're
helping,
doing is
and
right.
it's working.
It's the roach graveyard.
That's what I tell them. I go, you know what? Well, that's what they get for coming onto a property we treated. I should stay off. But I guess the not so bright ones haven't learned that yet. So here they are, belly up. I said, so we know it's working. That's good news.
Are you seeing many stinging any flying insects, any stinging insects that you're seeing around the place, like wasps and bees? Is any of them been in the area recently?
It's funny you mentioned that. We haven't really seen a lot of wasp activity yet. We have gone to a couple of places that look like they had wasp nests from last season, although we haven't seen activity on them. But we did go out, and we went to one place, which was a commercial establishment. And they had a bee cluster there. So it was a whole colony of bees on the migrate.
I was going to say that was a migrating colony that was coming in.
Yeah, a migrating colony came in, and it was on a tree near their front entrance. So they were a little concerned. But by the time we got there, they'd already started dissipating. So it was like, okay, problem solved. They were just kind of stopping off to rest.
At our best. I mean, they're migrating, so it is.
Yeah, and that's what had happened. We saw them, on the tree, went in, talked to them for about maybe 5 minutes. And then it looked like, they kind of started to move in a swarm away from the tree. And it's like, well, guys, looks like they've found a spot to move on to. So problem solved. They said, oh, wow, thanks for doing whatever you did. And I said, all I did was pull up. I said, Mother Nature took care of the rest. So, but hey, crisis averted. Those bees moved on, and I'm sure they're not right, near the entrance of a commercial establishment.
I think it's also a good sign to say that when you're seeing bees migrating even this early as well, because normally they've migrated by now, and now you're seeing that movement. It's a good sign to say, well, things are stirring. The insects are coming out from their overwintering. They've overwintered, and now they're starting to show themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me that they woke up kind of early, but maybe they know something we don't. I've always said that, you look at the trees, you look at the various different types of insects, and you kind of know what's coming weather-wise. There's little things that they show us to indicate that, and especially up here in the Lancaster area, you start to notice these things, and the shrubs start growing a little more. And when they get, the added sunshine and maybe a little bit of rain here and there, hillsides start to get a little greener if we get enough rain, because we're used to looking out and seeing mostly brown between the sand and the scrub and the brush and everything out there, and when it's windy enough, of course, a lot of that ends up as tumbleweeds in our roadways and
Yeah.
tumbleweeds in our yards, and tumbleweeds just, they almost seem to chase after you when you're walking down the sidewalk sometimes. But, you get used to that up here. You say, oh, there's another tumbleweed, or you're driving down the road and you slow down and get into the next lane so you don't, have a tumbleweed sticking in your grill of your car. Um, and if it's safe to do so, that is. But and some people just have to hit the tumbleweed. We get a
So
lot of those. But what I am noticing is, yeah, things are starting to stir. And that bee colony on the move, that was kind of an indicator. It's like, okay, duly noted. There's going to be things are going to start shaking soon.
well, I want to, because you mentioned something. As you're talking about the tumbleweeds and the cars and hitting the cars and stuff like that, it kind of gives me this idea, this whole Western type idea. But where's the weirdest place? Where's the weirdest area in? And I don't mean it because we're talking about Lancaster, but
Yeah.
I don't mean Lancaster as the area. I mean, where is the weirdest place, i.e., in a toilet, in a I don't know, some shopping bag, whatever it is, but that you have found an infestation early in the year where you've gone in and you've gone like, well, that's new.
I have to say it was probably um in the Lancaster area. It was kind of interesting to walk into, and it was, yeah, it's just a warehouse. Again,
Right.
a business
Business
type
place.
of establishment,
Right.
and mostly they dealt with paper goods. And so I thought, okay, well, what are we really going to find here? Um, but apparently, something that you normally find in the coastal areas, we found in this warehouse with all the paper goods, because the humidity was pretty high in there. What was going on was they needed to invest in dehumidifiers because they had a SOCID problem, book lice, in the warehouse, and they only do
Did you
well
just
when the
say book?
humidity's high.
Did you just say book lice?
Book lice, I kid you
Wow.
not. Yeah,
Really?
SOCIDs. And, of course, when I wrangled a few into a jar, and took them, I wanted to get a better idea. And then, of course, discussed and showed them to some colleagues, sent them off to entomology, the pictures
Yeah, they
and everything.
confirmed
And
that entomology confirmed this book lice.
And they said, "You've got SOCIDs." And I went, "In the high desert?" And they said, "Well, let's find out what the humidity is in there." And I said, "Okay." So I
Wow.
called them back and I asked them, what type of humidity levels are there we dealing with in there? Well, we ended up finding out that they were at about 74% humidity inside this warehouse.
Wow.
And so, yeah, these things were thriving. How they got there, I don't know.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
mean,
it
we
was.
did we did an episode, if you remember, when we first started this, we did an episode where we talked about um, products coming in, even from abroad, or products
Yeah,
coming in shipping containers, or even from food distribution companies. So
yeah.
I would probably guesstimate that this is what happened here.
I think so. I think some of the things that they got shipped to them came from real,
Yeah.
humid areas.
How
And
bad was the
so
infestation?
it wasn't horrific, but
Right.
it was noticeable. And so it was noticeable to the point where they called somebody, and we got the call,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
went out there, and they said, "Do you have any idea what these little things are?" And they're so small. And it had been a long time since I'd run across. I said, I have an inkling. Um, many years ago, I ran a beach route, and we used to find them all the time by the beach because humidity levels down by the beach. Of
Yeah.
course.
It's going to be
So
high. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you're
it's
by the
definitely
beach
high.
area,
You know,
you've
you
got
get
that
you get the
humidity.
fog rolls in the mornings,
Yeah.
and all that fun stuff off the ocean. So I said, I would say that these are maybe SOCIDs or book lice, but we're in the high desert. This doesn't make any sense. And then, of course,
Wow.
when it was confirmed, I said, okay, how did we get book lice here? That's what we. So best we could figure is something that got shipped in, was infested, and
Yeah.
then the infestation started to spread around the warehouse. Now, dehumidifying the warehouse took care of the lion's share of it, and then of course there's some great products that we were able to perimeter out the warehouse with,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
help move it along. And now they don't have any sort of problem anymore.
Well,
Um,
also, the people have got to realize that when you're treating for one particular pest, the products that we use actually treat for a myriad of pests. So
A myriad,
It's
yeah.
almost like you're getting a twofer or a
Yeah, we really
fifer,
are.
you know?
Yeah, we get that call all the time. How much for ants? Well, okay, we got a service that covers you for ants as well as all these other things. They go, no, that's too much. I just want the ants. How much for just the ants? And I go, well, it doesn't work that way. I said,
Do that.
yeah, I said, you take this product. It's got 65 different pests on the label. It's very effective at all 65. I said, you take this other product. It may have 81 pests on the label. It's very effective with all 81 of these pests. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made the label. I
Yeah.
said, so honestly, we're gonna be taking care of a broad spectrum of different things by
That's
coming
why
in
it's
and giving
worth
you a
it.
treatment.
And I think
Yeah,
that's something that homeowners in Lancaster need to be aware of, and as well as business owners. We're coming into where the season's going to kick off. It's going to be warm. We don't want them to
yeah.
be behind the eight ball. They've really got to look at getting things started now because they don't want to be. They want to be proactive rather than reactive.
Absolutely. And I always say, an ounce of the prevention is way better than a pound of the cure. And, you can apply any cliche in that same vein, and it really rings true with what we do. And I always tell them, if we go in early with a broad spectrum, you'd be surprised how many things we mitigate. And just, these are problems that never become an issue because we just didn't give them a chance to. And so I always say, look, it's hard to quantify,
No,
a problem that never happens
I was
because of what
thinking.
we're doing.
I
Yeah,
was thinking this would be fun. I was thinking, so when someone says that to you the next time and they say, you know what, no, I don't want any of those pests, I'll
yeah,
just have the ants. We'll say, okay, so it's X amount for the ants. And then if
yeah,
you have any other problems, it's that same amount again for the next pest. But if you
right,
take out the one deal, we're going to cover all that for free. So you get
right.
ants and you get 61 pests for free.
Hey, there you go. And that's kind of the approach I've taken, on
Yeah.
those. If I can talk to them, I can usually
You
explain it
educate them. It's
and tell
important.
them, yeah. But I
It's
usually
important.
kind of break the ice with something like that, and I tell them, well, it's a special we're running where you get all that for nothing extra. How cool is that?
I'm going to want to ask you. I want to ask you one final question before we kind of finish off there. So, and obviously you need to be. I don't want to give to any names or any pack deals, anything like that. But what is
Yeah.
the worst restaurant infestation that you have come across in Lancaster? And be as descriptive as you like without giving
Oh
the
yeah.
name.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. There was a restaurant we went to in the area, and they were fighting a fruit fly problem. I mean, a bad one.
Oh
And
my God, I
we went
hate
to the
them.
obvious, of course. You want to make sure the produce is first in, first
Yeah,
out. There's
yeah,
nothing, you know, sitting hanging, and it's a barn grill. And so,
right.
we had to dig a little deeper because we needed to find out if maybe one of the drink garnishes had been kicked under a cooler, or if all
And
checking
here's the
out the
thing, ladies and
floor
gentlemen,
sinks.
holistic pest control doesn't always work with that because I've even tried putting the old apple cider vinegar out, and you might catch a few of them, but my God, no,
Mhm.
it doesn't always work.
And being a barn grill, they had a couple of little glasses with some wine in it that caught a
Yeah.
few, but it didn't really make a dent in the problem. And so
Wow.
what we found, what was really causing it, I mean, we couldn't all the produce for the restaurant, was being rotated properly. There was nothing past its prime. Everything was, on the up there. We checked, no garnishes kicked underneath any of the coolers, nothing like that. What had happened is one of the areas where they kept some of the ice, as the ice would melt, it would drain down a tube. Well, this tube partially went in, and it was kind of encased between two, pieces of wood. Well, one of them was particle board, and what had happened is the particle board was constantly getting wet because the pipe had a break in it, just a little crack,
Yeah.
and so that particle board was staying wet, staying wet, staying wet, and that was the ultimately ended up being the source of the fruit fly infestation. But I'll tell you, it took us probably about 4 or 5 different visits of really, I mean, kind of ransacking the place. I mean, we turned it upside down. They were very patient with us, but I said, let's get to the bottom of this, and let's get, I mean, all the way to the bottom of this. And finally, I'm rooting around underneath all the areas, and there was the one sink, and that where they put the ice, and they used
Yeah.
to put a lot of, bottles of different, imported beers in the ice, and get them real ice cold, obviously, to serve.
So it
And
makes a perfect environment for them.
Oh, absolutely. And then I had to track that PVC pipe, and I went, wait a minute, where does this go? Well, it goes in there, but it all, ultimately goes all the way. And is there any way to get this panel off? And then I started looking at the panel where the particle board was, and I went, wait, it's all wet down here. Oh my goodness.
There's a
And it
leak.
started to separate and crumble, but it was just the breeding site for all these fruit flies. So we got that particle board out of there, and I'll tell you,
And you know what?
within 2 days, it was like a night and day difference
I
in
was
there.
going to say, and the fruit flies, if any of you have ever had a problem with fruit flies, ladies and gentlemen, I've been in places where there's fruit fly, and they're just so, all right, they're not really going to spread any disease as such, but
Mm.
on a scale of 1 to 10 and an annoying factor, these
Oh
little
God, they are
buggers
annoying.
are 100.
Oh yeah, they really are. They're so annoying. They're all in your face, and they won't,
Oh,
And I'll tell you, they were very grateful because if you have a fruit fly infestation, that's just one of many reasons the health department can shut that place down. So
yeah.
they said, well, we really need to get this under control somehow. And that was what they originally called about. They said, what do you do for flies? And I said, well, there's not like really a spray for that, but we can come and investigate. That's where we really need to start is get in there and investigate what's
You
going
need to
on. I
get
said, but
that inspection done and
yeah,
and to
you
really
thorough
fully
inspection.
have that information.
Yeah, and it was one of those small details, and until I dug right underground, it was under the bar where the one area, and then I said, "Oh my gosh, I'll be dipped." Went all the way, the other side of the walkway back there, and checked all those coolers. Everything was fine, but it was under the bar itself, and it was just the backside, not the side the
Yeah,
customers would
yeah.
even be dealing with. But I mean, it was just their breeding ground, and once I finally made that discovery, and we finally got that particle board out of there and kind of opened it up and dried out the area. I mean, like I said, night and day difference right off the bat. But and they haven't had a problem since, and they've actually been a solid client for a number of years. And
That's
but that's how
brilliant.
we won them over. They
Yeah.
had a large national pest control company coming out to them, and their technician and the technician supervisor, I mean, they were trying all sorts of different things but couldn't really get the problem solved. They were foaming drains, they were doing all this other stuff, but they didn't realize the
See,
particle board was the key to it.
it pays to go local, homegrown, someone who knows the area, who's
Yeah,
been in the environment, that understands, and that's where we come in, ladies and gentlemen. We're homegrown, and
yeah,
Jeff and his team are local. They understand. So, Jeff, thanks for coming again, and let's having a chat
yeah.
about this. We've got loads more to bring up. So make sure, guys, that you follow us. Make sure that if you've got any questions, you reach out to us. FirstResponsePC.com. You can phone the number there to the office. And if you've got any questions about your home or business with pest control, then and make sure it's not you're trying to sell us something, just pest control. If you've got an issue,
Yep,
because we're dealing with silly little inquiries that come in, someone could be really needing our service and you're just taking up and wasting time. So if
right.
you've got a pest control problem, if you've got any questions, you want us to deal with it, you want us to give you any of these answers, then contact us, firstresponsepc.com. Jeff, it's always a pleasure, brother. It's always a pleasure
Always.
just chatting about this and educating people in the area. We're going to be talking about other areas, other things. We've got loads and loads coming up all the way through the season. We're going to be entertaining, we're going to be educating, and
Yeah,
you're going to enjoy these conversations.
absolutely.
God bless, ladies and
Absolutely.
gentlemen. See you soon.